The blank page, the blinking cursor. Is there anything worse? Facing that blank page, that whiteness with nothing on it? Yep. Let's talk about writer's block.
To begin, how to start. I'm hungry. I should get coffee. Coffee would help me think. But I should write something first, then reward myself with coffee. Coffee and a muffin. Okay, so I need to establish the themes. Maybe banana nut. That's a good muffin.
You've tried standing and sitting, cold rooms, warm rooms, pencils or pens, paper, laptop, or maybe the old-fashioned typewriter.
I can't write. I'm trying and I can't get anything.
There's nothing to writing, Gellhorn.
It's...
All you do is sit down at your typewriter and bleed.
Or maybe you've tried the famous write drunk, edit sober advice, but you never quite got to the edit part because, well, the page was still blank. And you had a headache. So, writer's block. Let's talk about it and give you some new ways to handle an old problem. Grammarly's latest pitch is,
writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help.
Except, you know, it is easy for some people. Why is it easy for some and not for others? Why isn't it easy for you? And then there's this.
Yeah, I'm notorious for saying there's absolutely no such thing as writer's block.
Yes, Seth Godin, who says there is no such thing as writer's block. We made it up. It's just an excuse.
It's just
Get in the ring, Gellhorn. See what you're made of. Start throwing some punches for what you believe in.
So stick around to the end of this video and we'll see if we can solve the problem of Seth Godin and the problem of writer's block together. Hi, I'm James Callahan and this is the Do-Over Show where we set a schedule to produce and post a video every Monday and Friday. And you know what that does? That forces me to do the work of writing and producing a video every Monday and Friday. And that's the first step in curing writer's block, and that is giving yourself a realistic schedule to follow. And that's the first tactic to tackle the blank page or blinking cursor we call writer's block. Now, when I started this channel at the beginning of the year, I followed the advice of really famous YouTubers, and that is I wrote down 100 different ideas for videos. Not 5 or not even just that one video that I was going to create because I just had to say it, send it out to the world and see what happened. No, 100 videos. And writing and the problems we have with writing was at the top of that list. So number 2 on our 10 top tactics to tackle writer's block, that's a tongue-twisting mouthful, is to try to write every day. Some don't write every day. Some famous writers say they only write when the muse is with them. Well, that means some write every day, some don't write every day. You've got to find what works for you, what works best for you. And I can tell you that in the building of capacity, in the building stage of writing more often, writing more frequently, whether it's longer periods or whether it's just 5 minutes here or there, those are the kind of things that add up to discover what your actual capacity is and can you increase your capacity to write and put out creative work. And number 3 on the list is that there's a myth about creativity. The myth is that you're either born with it or you're not. But if I've learned anything from neuroplasticity and emotional intelligence studies, it's this, that our brains change, can be changed, and can be changed back or changed into something bigger and better. Yeah, we can actually learn something like empathy, caring, and self-awareness for others and not just for our own little worlds upon which the world itself revolves around. But we can actually develop what we call this capacity for creativity. And that brings us to number 4, empathy. Yep, empathy. Being aware of others, being aware of our relationship with others. This might be the greatest single part of learning to write and filling pages. In business, it's called slow thinking, and it's what happens when we add the question of human life and human capital and how people will respond instead of just looking at how quickly can we get something done, what's the ROI, what's the bottom line. Now, if you write about only what you want to write about, don't expect or count on others to read it. That's called entitlement. And that's another component of empathy. Be aware of yourself enough to realize that the world doesn't revolve around the things that you or I think are of utmost importance. Now, one of the best pieces of advice to writers is to learn to appreciate the writing of others. So number 5, try to do what they do by writing different things, different kinds of things. Poetry, a short story, write a joke, a limerick, a lyric, ad copy, a voiceover script, a technical description of how to assemble your latest IKEA purchase, or even the recipe for your favorite meal. I can tell you I've tried all of these and more. It helps us discover what we not only like, but what we seem to have an aptitude for, or more of an aptitude for. It also shows us areas that if, well, we're hired to do technical writing and write instructions for assembling an end table or dresser or bed, that we probably need to work a little harder on that. You might find you really like one kind of writing. So if you're not a poet or a novelist, you might be a script writer or a technical writer, putting together grant proposals for foundations, or more of a research and report writer. But you'll never know until you try. But remember, some people seem to be able to write just about anything they're asked to write or care to write. And that brings us the next big component in tackling this issue of writer's block, and that is we got to get over this jealousy. It's like standing next to a guitarist while they watch another guitarist play and hearing the friend next to you say, "I can play that." The alternative to jealousy is appreciation, is learning from them, is learning to copy from them, to test our capacity and whether or not we might have a similar skill set.
A season of face perfection. What's this?
Start typing that. Sometimes a simple rhythm of typing gets us from page 1 to page 2. And when you begin to feel your own words, start typing them.
So that brings us to number 7. Start by copying. Using a form or a model of what somebody's written and doing our own version of it, or at least borrowing the first line or first 2 lines of something.
Punch the keys, for God's sake!
Now, number 8 is the traditional advice, and that is that good writers read. So we need to read, read, read. It'll plant ideas, it'll stimulate our thought, it'll give us new options, new ways of seeing ordinary things. And that is really what draws attention from people to our writing, and that is that we're able to see ordinary things that others may have missed, to show or point them out in a way. It's an intriguing feature of writing. But don't just read the same kinds of things, and that's number 9 on our list of tackling writer's block. If you want to be a poet, read poetry, but read so much more than just poetry. The typical advice we get is to read biographies because they show us what real life looks like. But even biographies have their own genre. So even if we read 500 biographies about 500 famous people, we've really only read one type of literature, one type of writing. And that can actually become a problem for us, another block that we have to eliminate. Now, if you're a researcher and you only read research literature and peer-reviewed journals because that's the only thing you want to publish, congratulations. You will be mimicking and mocking that kind of language, the buzzwords, the way it's written. That's fine, but that's not the kind of creative writing most people face when they talk about writer's block. And number 10 on the list of tackling writer's block is to know where you're going before you begin to write. And that means writing out the end or the idea that you're shooting for. Now, it may change as you write. You may develop as you move forward. Now, researchers always start with the conclusions in mind and write backwards from there. But even in creative writing, even in poetry, short stories, even in fantasy writing, there usually is a tone or a sentiment or a location or a place or a set of ideas or at least a feeling that the writer is aiming toward, and they work back from there. They begin there before they even begin the task of writing the copy. So there's our first 10 tactics to tackle this problem of writer's block. But we still have that man, we still have Seth Godin to deal with. What do you think about his idea that there's really no such thing as writer's block, that it's something we make up as an excuse? Well, let me know in the comments below what you think, and in the meantime, let me tell you a story. A student of mine not long ago was so incensed by Seth Godin and this idea that I suggested that she write him a rebuttal, or at least her questions, about how dismissive he was to the creative process, individuals' uniquenesses, is that even a word? And so many frustration-filled days and nights in front of a blank page. A few days later, she came back to me and showed me that she had written him an 18-page letter, that when she started it, she just couldn't stop writing it. She said, "This cured my writer's block, or at least it cured me of the idea that I could use writer's block as an excuse." And maybe it did cure her, or at least help her see that there were other ways for her to be creative. And thank you for being part of the Do-Over Show. Please tap the like button because it really helps. And hey, while you're down there, remember to subscribe and ring the notifications bell so you don't miss an episode of the Do-Over Show every Monday and Friday. I'm so glad you found me, and I found you. Thanks.
Sit. Go ahead.
Go ahead and what?
Right.
What are you doing?
I'm writing, like you'll be, when you start punching those keys.